Trying to adjust myself. Okay. So, first of all, apologies for the terrible quality of this webcam. I normally use my phone to record, and this is just some little webcam thing that I bought ages ago for this purpose, but I haven't live streamed that much, so I need to get a new one. You can hear me, that is great. How bad is the video quality? Okay, so the reason I'm doing this as a live stream is because I previously recorded this entire video as one to upload. Right. Yeah, I recorded this as one to upload, and the video was like 35 minutes long, like the unedited version, and I fully smashed it out. I've edited it in like a day, and I've got the thumbnail ready, and it was all ready to go, and then I accidentally deleted the entire thing, and it was really upsetting. So I just kind of been in a stop about it, and I haven't done anything since. I feel like this needs moving a little bit. Yeah, I hadn't done anything since with this video, and I decided that I was just going to live stream it so I can go through it this way. So obviously, as I said, the thing that I want to speak about is my experience with mental health services. Please bear in mind that I am based in the UK. I'm in England, so my services that I receive, if you're watching this from somewhere else, might be completely different. I think most of you are in the UK anyway, but if you are in a different place, it's going to vary because I don't know what services are like there. So let me just jump right in. When I first started receiving help for my mental health, it was when I was 16. I took myself to the doctors. I was never taken to the doctors as a child, unfortunately. I definitely should have been, and maybe things would have been different, but that's a whole different video. Netherlands, cool. What is? It's not too far from me, is it? I have to tell you, I don't know where anything is, and I'm absolutely awful. So tell me, what's your experience been like in the Netherlands? Like, have you had a good one, or has it been bad? My experience, I would have to say, has been 80% bad and like 20% good. So I first went to the doctors when I was 16. I knew that there was something wrong with me. It's like an hour away. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Cool. I didn't know you were that close. Told you, I literally don't even know what's around me. But I went to the doctors when I was 16. I knew that there was some kind of issue there because, as I've said before in previous videos, my mental health was in a bad state kind of throughout childhood. So it was obvious. When I went to the doctors, I told them how I felt, and I think I kind of described it as having low mood, and I was suicidal. I'd been self-harming for a few years by this point. I've never been to Amsterdam, but I really want to go there because I think is that where Anne Frank's house is? I really want to go to that. Tell me if you've been, please, if it's good. I mean, not good, it's kind of depressing, but you know what I mean. So I said to the doctors all of these kind of symptoms that I was dealing with. It is, yay, I got something right. proud moment, that's a win for me. And I remember saying that, and I know the word is a little bit taboo, but this is 16-year-old me. I remember going to the doctors and saying that I felt crazy. That was the only way that I could describe it at that point as an adolescent with all these things going through my mind. Not crazy as in, in a derogatory way, what you see on, I don't know, some like old TV programs or something, and they're saying, oh, this person's a nutter. I mean crazy as in just the chaos inside of your mind. And if you're somebody that has mental health issues, and especially if you're somebody that has BPD, you know what I mean about the kind of crazy feeling that you can have. You've never been there, should go one day. Amsterdam. I definitely will go, definitely. I'll tell you about it in a video when I've been. So the doctors, they said that it sounds like I have depression, and they prescribed me antidepressants. No, it's fine. You can talk. I like that you've come to say hello. I didn't take antidepressants at 16 though, because I had my first boyfriend when I was 16 until I was 18. He was a massive D-bag and emotionally abusive, but he didn't like the idea of me going on medication. He said medication changes you. So at that time, I didn't take anything. When I was 16, I refused medication. When that, I don't know what happened to my voice. I should have brought in a drink and I didn't. I can't even nick one of the kids. No, it's fine. When I ended that relationship and I was 18, I went back to the doctors because nothing had gotten better. In that gap between 16 to 18, nothing had improved at all because, as I say, there were still things going on at home, and I am going to do another video to explain my kind of childhood and why I think I am the way I am anyway. But I don't want to do that in this. I'll do that in another live stream. But things that were going on at home that caused me problems were still going on. And as I say, he was emotionally abusive, so I hadn't gotten any better in that time. So when I went back to the doctors, they did prescribe me medication, and I told them the same thing about how I was feeling, about feeling crazy and all this stuff. And I was given citalopram. I think that was my first. Yeah, it was. That was my first antidepressant. And I was referred for counselling. And this is kind of around like 18, 19 now. I'm going to try and do this in some kind of chronological order, but my memory is just terrible. So I might kind of jump back and forth, but I'll keep it as clear as I can. When I had that counselling, it was just it wasn't anything special. It was just like, you know, at your GP surgery, they have kind of counsellors there sometimes. So it was just like a regular talking therapy thing. It might have been CBT because I've had that twice, but this might have been the first round of CBT that I had. Anyway, I was going in and out, and nothing was helping. The counselling wasn't helping. The counsellors, I'm sorry if you're a counsellor, but I don't really like counsellors because I've never had a good experience with one. But I kind of stopped that, and I was still constantly going back to the doctors, feeling more and more in despair, saying that this isn't working, something isn't working. I don't feel better at all. I feel the same or worse. It felt like it was getting worse. And then I was eventually just sent off on different medication. I think after citalopram, I went on to mirtazapine, I think. So this was just going on and off medication. When I was 19, I stopped medication actually because I was pregnant with my eldest child. So I had a 9-month gap where I wasn't taking any medication. And then that was really difficult. That first pregnancy was really, really hard because I had no medication. My hormones were all over the place. I wasn't getting any support from mental health services at all. And I think I touched on this in another video, how there isn't support out there for people who are becoming a new mum or a new parent and have mental health issues. There's nothing that kind of ties those two things together, and it is a really difficult time for somebody with regular issues. It's difficult for everyone anyway, so you know. Anyway, I'm about 20 years old now, and I was constantly going back to the doctors saying there's something else wrong, there is something you're not getting. I was researching, I was trying to learn symptoms and signs for things, and I was going back and forth all of the time. I settled at bipolar at one point, and I was looking at some of the symptoms because, as you probably know, BPD can get misdiagnosed as bipolar quite a lot because a lot of the symptoms can cross over and the causes for it as well. So I went to my doctor and I said, could it be this? And they said no and sent me on my way. Anyway, I fought and I eventually got in front of a psychiatrist for the first time when I was 21. By this time as well, I'd been working in a psychiatric hospital for 2 years, I think. I worked there for 6 years. So I was learning more and more about mental health illnesses, symptoms, diagnoses, things like that, just through my work as well as the research that I was doing. When I eventually got in front of a psychiatrist, I knew exactly what I had. They asked me, obviously, a bunch of questions, and they asked me what I thought I had. And I said, yeah, I've settled at borderline personality disorder. It's just obviously me, like all of the boxes ticked about past, about trauma, about symptoms now, the way it affects you, things like that. And the psychiatrist, she said, yeah, that's what you've got. She called it emotionally unstable personality disorder, and I was a bit confused at that point, but she said it was the same thing. And sent me on my way again to do some more research and just read up about it. I think they just sent me like a leaflet to kind of say this is what it is and this is what it can do. But nothing more than that. At that point as well, I had just started a second round of CBT, and I stopped going because once you're diagnosed with a personality disorder, they change it to DBT that you need rather than CBT, which is fine because that person was useless. I actually arrived for a session once, and because it was at the GP surgery, I checked in downstairs and they hadn't like gone through to her system to say that I was here. So I went upstairs and I waited outside, and after like 15 minutes she came out, but it was an hour-long session. She came out all packed up ready to go home, and she said, "Oh, I didn't know you was here." And I was like, "Oh, that's fine, it must have just been a mistake." And she was like, came in for a second, spoke to her for a second, and then she was like, "Oh, okay, we'll book a session for next week then." And I thought, why couldn't I have the other 45 minutes of my session I was owed? So that broke my trust in her, and I stopped seeing her anyway. So that wasn't a good experience either. Maybe a weird question. Go for it. Ask whatever question you want. So after psychiatrist, I still wasn't given any help. I wasn't put on any type of medication for it. I was still being prescribed antidepressants, which I have always said never ever worked for me. Can you rewatch this video later? Yeah, I am going to leave it on my channel, which is it's okay. It's not edited, so it's going to feel weird, and I don't have all. I'm not going to be able to cut out all of these little mistakes or every time I've said like I would in a normal video. But I will keep it up. So if you want to watch it, that's totally fine. See, just said it again. So yeah, after seeing psychiatrists, I wasn't given anything. My medication was constantly changed. I went from citalopram to mirtazapine. After mirtazapine, I was put on fluoxetine. After fluoxetine, I went back on mirtazapine, and then I was put on venlafaxine. So I was put on all these different antidepressants, and I literally kind of just tried everything. By the time I finished the venlafaxine, I'd exceeded the maximum dose, because what would happen is I would have a blip at home or a little episode at home, and every time that happened I'd ring the doctors. Oh, thank you. That's honestly, that is things like that make me smile, so thank you for your kind comment, and do watch it back and let me know what you think. But yeah, the maximum dose of whatever amount, they was just increasing it. Every time I had an episode or something, I'd ring the doctors and say, "I'm really not doing well," because I wasn't being given any care at this point. I wasn't under a service. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, no worries. Get a good sleep. Yeah, I was never given anything long term. So I would be referred to my local mental health hub, and I would have to go through the motions of seeing a primary liaison worker. Good night. Primary liaison worker, having a kind of assessment, and then being sent on to whatever pathway they thought I needed from that. Sorry for looking down all the time, by the way. It's just the chat's down here, so it's just easier for me than when I'd normally be looking at the camera. So every single time I'd get something really short, or they'd change my medication, or that was it really. And then they would discharge me. So every single time something happened, I'd have to start at the beginning, ring the doctors, they'd do a referral, normally an urgent referral. And then it just went on and on and on in that process, not getting anywhere at all. So my medication ended up exceeding what it was meant to be. And at some point, I think probably when I was around 22 or 23, I was put in a group called a You and Me group. It was a 3-month-long course, and it was specifically for personality disorder. My experience with the group it wasn't bad, but it definitely could have been better. The thing that I did like about it was, as I say, it was 3 months long, so it was the same people every time, and we all kind of got the chance to share and to talk. But the thing that I found not so great about that is that you weren't allowed to talk in detail about things, understandably, in case it was triggering for another person. But it was also kind of difficult to not be able to come in and say, "I've had a really bad week, I can't stop self-harming," or "I can't stop doing this," and not really be able to kind of say that, when those are the difficult things that I feel need to be spoken about, because those are the things that we struggle with. That's the reality for us, like behind closed doors, or that's what we have to deal with. So you need to be able to talk about it. But I only ended up doing 2 months of that group out of the 3 because then I started uni. So after that group, I wasn't given anything else. I didn't do anything else. I ended up changing medication at some point, and I can't remember. I've been on quetiapine for a year and a half. Is it a year and a half? Maybe it's 2 years. Actually, yeah, it's 2 years in July. Okay, so when I was like 24, yeah, that sounds about right. Um, my medication got changed, and my medication wasn't changed at the idea of anybody that was providing me care, because as I say, there wasn't any consistent care. The medication was changed because actually a friend of mine who I worked with, who was training to be a mental health nurse and also happened to have personality disorder, the same type as me, she recommended quetiapine and said, "What about, try and ask for this and see if it's something that they'd consider." So I ended up going back to the doctors, and by this point, I wasn't only struggling with the BPD. That's been something that has been a massive stressor for me. Is that I feel like the treatment that I've been given and receiving is for BPD, and I actually feel like it is the depression for me that is the biggest problem that causes me the most distress, I think, anyway. So I did some more research and I found out that quetiapine is an antipsychotic, but in lower doses, it can be used to treat severe depression. So I went back to my doctors and I said, okay, I would like to try this because I've been on years and years and years of antidepressants and nothing works. And the evidence is there, it's just not been working for me. And then I got questioned, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to try this? And I said, well, I want to actually chase the diagnosis. Like, if on my paperwork before previous years, it had said, mild to moderate depression, and that is definitely not accurate at all. And I wanted to have that on paper if it was not manic, major. I think that's what I'll get them confused because there's just so many. I think severe and major depression is like the same thing, but sorry if I'm wrong. And I wanted it on paper if it was that, so that I could start receiving the treatment for it. And they were kind of hesitant at first because GPs, they don't necessarily like to make a big medication change when it's a medication that's more intense or more severe. So whenever I wanted something like, say, like PRN changing, for example, they wouldn't do it at the GP. They would write to my local mental health hub and they would ask the consultant psychiatrist to change it for me. So they don't always do all of the medication changes at the GP, and they were kind of reluctant to do it. But I've missed out as well, actually. Before this time, I had my first overdose. So I was in hospital for 3 days after my first overdose and after my second, same amount of time. But when I was there, the first one, it wasn't as neither of them were really severe. I know that might sound like I'm downplaying it quite a bit, but it wasn't. I took myself to hospital. They asked me about it, and I said I wasn't trying to end my life. It was more of a kind of a release, I guess, if that makes any sense. But obviously, on discharge, you have to speak to mental health services, and they just kind of ask you, "Are you okay? Are you going to do it again? Why'd you do it?" And then they just let you go. And that one, at that time, I was quite regretful that I'd done it. So I was quite reassuring that no, I wasn't going to do anything. I was going to go home and be fine, and I was fine. But my first admission to a psychiatric hospital, my connection is unstable. No, don't do this to me. My internet sucks. Sorry. I'm literally in the room with the internet as well to make it better, but no, it's fine. So when I was in psychiatric hospital, it was only for 2 weeks. Both times I've been in hospital, it's been a voluntary admission. And that was one of the worst experiences I've ever had in mental health services at all. In fact, that is the worst experience I had. The entire time that I was in there, I was left alone completely. So at the point of admission, I was restricting my diet. I'm diagnosed with disordered eating also, which, if you don't know, it's if you have an eating disorder that doesn't fit in the category of the typical ones like bulimia, anorexia, binge eating, I think that's like the 3 ones that come up on our NHS website. If you have one that doesn't fit and check all of those boxes, but you still have a disorder there, then they just diagnose it as disordered eating. So I was restricting at this point when I was admitted to hospital, and they were aware of this. They were supposed to be keeping a food and fluid chart on me, and I think at this point I was vegetarian. Yeah, I was vegetarian. There wasn't many meals, and even when they did bring something up, I would quite often refuse it and just not eat anything throughout the whole day. And nothing was said to me about it. Nothing was mentioned. There wasn't any support offered there at all. When I was in my room, I spoke to staff and said how I felt like nobody was even speaking to me. None of the HCAs, none of the nurses, other than the odd kind of catch up here and there. And nobody was coming to see how I was. Nobody was checking in on me. And I even wrote a letter and I stuck it outside my bedroom door. And in the morning, it was just to say, like, please help me. Like, I don't feel like anybody is trying to do anything right now, and I'm struggling a lot. And the letter was gone in the morning, so clearly staff had read it, but nobody said anything to me at all. When I was in that admission as well, I was rocking. So I was sat down in the corridor, and I was literally kind of sat down like, like hunched up like this, like rocking back and forth as you do, like a normal person. I was rocking back and forth, and a staff member came down the hallway and they came up to me. I'd never met them before. It was a night staff, so I didn't know who they were. And they said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" They said it to me a couple of times. I didn't respond. I just continued rocking, and they just left me and walked away. And having worked in a psychiatric hospital for such a long time myself, I know that sometimes things are ignored, not because they don't care, but to kind of downplay the behaviour. For example, you get people who superficially self-harm for hands-on or for restraints, for example. And so sometimes that behaviour would be ignored while it's still safe but monitored, so that it doesn't encourage the person doing that. But this wasn't that situation. On another occasion, I went outside into the courtyard. Again, I was upset, I was struggling, I had my headphones on. I was the only person outside, and I pace if I'm struggling or anxious. And I was pacing around and around and around. And I was literally outside for like 45 minutes, and nobody came and said anything to me. Nobody asked if I was okay. The worst one was I was in my room alone, and I got knocked for my evening meds. I refused my medication. The reason I refused my medication is because I was going to self-harm. So I did what I was going to do. And then when they came back to get me for my medication, I came out and I had like a massive kind of like golf ball lump on my face, like here. And nobody said anything to me. The nurse didn't say anything to me. The HCA that had come and got me didn't say anything to me. The second nurse that was in the clinic, to kind of like witness meds and things like that, nobody said anything to me at all. And then the next morning when I got up to take my morning meds, somebody just said to me, "Oh, you've got a black eye." And I was like, "Yeah." And that was it. That was it. I feel like that place, it really, really didn't help. Not on the first admission, but I will tell you about the second one, which was a lot better. But it was just awful. I felt like I was at bottom. I felt like I was in the one place that I could be in, that I was supposed to receive all of the help that I needed, because I was so desperate and so lost and so in need of something to make me feel better, something to, and it just wasn't given. And then at that point, it just made me feel even more hopeless than before, because if you can't get help and support in the one place where you feel like that's exactly what it's for, then who else can help you? That's how it left me feeling, was if they can't, then surely no one can. There isn't anyone. There's nothing I can do to make this go away. So the OTs were good there, though. Just quickly, like, give them credit. The OTs were good. I had an art session and I made out of clay, like my own grave and stuff, which I thought was hilarious, but I don't think they found it funny. So when I left there, this was when I was oncotyping, I'd been introduced to the medication whilst I was there, which was a good thing really, because it completely knocks you out. If anyone's taken it, you just can't stay awake, not whilst you're transitioning. I can take it now, and it doesn't touch me at all, but at that point I physically could not stay awake. No matter how much I wanted to, it was impossible. So after I left there, I was going back and forth. I was given a dietitian because I'd previously been to the eating disorder services twice. The first time that I went to the eating disorder services, I said to them everything that was going on, how I restrict my food, how it becomes out of control, and then I get too weak to stand up or to do anything, and you're shaking all the time, and it's horrible. It is a horrible situation to be in. That feeling is very horrible when you can't help yourself and you feel like no one helps, try and reach out. Yeah, that's exactly it. When you feel like you've asked everyone that you can possibly ask and they can't do anything, then you're just left thinking, well, no one can do anything. So yeah, definitely. My experience with the eating disorder services was horrendous as well. As I say, when I went to the ED team the first time, I told them everything, and they simply just looked at me and said, "You don't have an eating disorder," and sent me on my way. So things got bad again, and because I wasn't getting any help from anywhere else, I would just be going back and forth to my GP, who some of them were really nice and some of them weren't. My GP is quite good, so I'm quite lucky. I eventually got re-referred to the ED team, and I went back for a second assessment. This was like a year later, I think, because I'd given up. And my voice is going again. Sorry. Yeah. This time, I told them the same things, and that was when they diagnosed me with disordered eating. So that was before hospital. So anyway, when I came out of hospital, I was told that I would be given, from my local mental health hub, I would be given 6 sessions of psychology and also a dietitian. When I was discharged, none of this was followed up. Nothing was communicated. This was all still very fresh for me as well. I think it was within like the first week because I hadn't heard anything. So I rang my local mental health hub and I said, I'm supposed to be getting this and this, and I haven't heard anything. And the woman on the phone, she looked at it and she was like, I don't know what you're on about. There's nothing on here to say that you're getting either of those things. And I was like, what? I was really upset. I got really distressed on the phone, and then she moaned at me for being distressed on the phone. So that wasn't great. But I eventually did get a dietitian. She was really nice, but realistically, there's not a lot that dietitians can do. She just kind of spoke to me. I was vegan by this point as well, so it kind of made it harder. She just sent me a leaflet on foods that are good for you and what you should be eating, and that was pretty much it. So the ED side, I've kind of just managed myself for forever, for my whole life. So that wasn't great either. The 6 sessions of psychology I did get, and she was nice, but in those 6 sessions, we only focused on one thing. And for somebody that has multiple diagnoses, or even just one diagnosis, especially with it being PD, there's so many different aspects to it, so many different sides to it, that you can't possibly cover it all in 6 sessions. 6 sessions, I think we focused on, I don't remember if we focused on low mood or if we focused on anger. I think it was like kind of trying to switch your mood or something like that. But they were okay. It was as much as I could do in 6 hours. But I remember that at that point I felt, when it had finished, again, I was discharged from services because I'd finished what I'd been there for. So there was nothing else. So I was discharged all over again. At this point, I was really badly addicted to self-harming. Yes, that definitely can be a thing. I know that may sound shocking, but addiction can be to anything. So, and when you're a lifelong, yeah. So I remember, I think in my last session, I said to her, "What can I do about this?" And she was just like, "Oh, we didn't talk about that. Like I didn't realise that was a thing." But my 6 sessions were up, so there was nothing I could do. After this, I was going in and out constantly, just being discharged and kind of reaching out again and saying, like, nothing's better. I'm still this same way. I need help. And I managed, I don't know how, I got back in front of another psychiatrist. And this was just as bad as the hospital. I remember very clearly, for once, I can remember something, that I was sat in the corner here, the psychiatrist was sat over there, and there was a third person sat in the other side of the room. I don't know why. Maybe there was a trainee or something. I don't remember why there was another person there. But she said to me, what's going on? I told her all this stuff. And she didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to say. She said to me, what do you want? What do you want us to do? Which is the worst question in the world, especially to somebody who's literally like in the middle of a crisis. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do I want you to do? You're the doctor. Tell me what you can do. Tell me what help I can get. My head, it feels like your whole brain is working against you and you're fighting to survive. Tell me what I can do. So I said to her, she said, okay, well, you can go through counselling again. And I said, in the politest possible way, I don't want to go through counselling because my level of severity, and I'm sure a lot of you have felt this, where you feel like you're too severe for a counsellor. Like they deal with problems like down here and your issues are way up there. So how is this person going to help you? Especially since I've had so many that were just terrible. So I said I didn't want that. I didn't want the counselling. I said I wanted psychology. I wanted something that was in depth. And again, don't forget, at this point, I was still working at a mental health hospital. I've seen how people can receive help, but these people who are under a section, I'm not saying it's good to be under a section. It's really difficult. I've witnessed it. But at the same time, nobody at all gets the help that they get. The weekly sessions, the psychiatrist on call if they need it, you know, if there's a problem, they get help just like that. The support is really, really put there for somebody who is in that setting, and it's not there in a community for people who need it. So I said I wanted psychology, and she said that there's a service called IAPT. I can't remember what that stands for. She said the only thing that you can do is go to this service called IAPT. It's not psychology, but there are psychologists involved in the service that help run it. So it contains psychologists. So I would have access to them. But you can't go there because you're too severe. You're not allowed to go to IAPT if you're self-harming. So I can't refer you. And all I can suggest is that you have to be 3 months self-harm free before you can go to IAPT. So when you're 3 months self-harm free, refer yourself. And that was it. That was what was given. And it was so crushing and so upsetting because, again, I've gone to this person who I've gone higher and higher and higher. I'm now a psychiatrist. Like, you can't get higher than that, than a doctor at that level. And they're telling me there's literally nothing I can do because I'm too severe, which makes no sense whatsoever. I was really upset. I didn't take it well. I just looked at her and I said, this is why people killed themselves. And then I walked out. So I've never been able to refer myself to that. This was years ago now, like 2 years ago, I'd say 2 or 3. I've never been able to refer myself to that because in all that time, I have never been 3 months self-harm free. So I've never been able to use that service. And I'm sure it's probably just as shit as all the others. But anyway, again, I was left on my own, not receiving any support from anyone, going back and forth to my GP. Fast forward to October 2019. I say fast forward, but I think I was already at that year, sorry. That was the second overdose. So again, I went to hospital. I was in hospital for 3 days. And again, I saw somebody upon discharge. No, I did, but then I discharged myself. I saw somebody, they asked me if I was going to do it, if I was, I don't know, going to kill myself and all of this and that. And I don't remember what I told them. I wasn't in a good place at all. I was in a really, really bad place at that point. So I did probably let on that I was in a really bad place and say how I was feeling, but they discharged me anyway with no follow-up, nothing else, no further action. And then I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, because my first hospital admission came after that. Okay, so that hospital admission I just told you about, that was in July 2020. Yeah, and the overdose was in October 2019. Okay, so then this year, October just gone, October 2020, that was my second admission. I wasn't in there for that long. I was only in there for about a week. That is my only bugbear with that admission, is that I wanted to stay longer. I didn't feel like I was safe or ready to go home, but they sent me home anyway. But I'll tell you about that admission because this is the only good experience I've had, honestly, since I was 16 going to mental health. 10 years, yeah, I'm 26, so literally 10 years of mental health services. This is the only good experience I've had. So what led up to my admission there was multiple incidents at home. I live by myself. I do have children, but they're half with me, half with the dad. So on the times that my children aren't here, that brings me to another question I'll answer in a minute. But on the times that my children aren't here, that would be when I would be doing these things, these incidents. I don't do these things with my children around as such, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So I wasn't seeing the children at this point because when I get too poorly and I can't hold it together with them here, then I stop seeing them for a while, which is kind of difficult and very upsetting, but it's for the best. So I wasn't seeing them at this point, and I was having multiple incidents at home. I had paramedics come out to me twice because I think I was ringing crisis team in a crisis, and so they just sent ambulance out. So both times, the first time I was taken to hospital, I sat in A&E for 4 hours before I saw anyone. I sat in A&E with a piece of glass actually that I had been using, and I was cutting up all my trousers and stuff in the waiting area. Not that anybody noticed or came to ask if I was okay, but I'm not really going to hate on that because NHS has no money and they do their very best. So A&E, that's fine. I understand that. That's not a problem. But I saw a really, really nice nurse. He was great. He was so great. I told him I wanted to go to hospital and he was reluctant to let me go straight away, so I didn't. After my second incident at home and the paramedics took me to hospital again, I was seen quicker. I said that I wanted to go to hospital because I didn't feel like I was able to keep myself safe at all. And things were escalating. I think the paramedics came out and I had ligatures on and things like that. So it was getting worse. And that's what led up to my other admission. I don't know if this is the case in all countries or in all places, but sometimes because obviously hospital beds are quite scarce, they have these houses. I can't remember what they're called, but it's not a hospital, it's just a house that you go to. And it's kind of like a break. It's like a halfway between your house and between hospital. And they asked me if I wanted to go and stay in one of these houses, but you're only allowed to stay there for up to a week and you have to sign a contract to say that you're not going to self-harm. And I was like, I physically cannot do that. And I didn't want to go there. So I eventually went to hospital, the same hospital that I went to before, luckily enough, because I was going to be sent to London and then a bed came up. This time I was on a different ward. So the experience that I had, I cannot fault it at all. I really can't. My room was sterile on admission because of the risk of like cables and laces and things. So I didn't have anything in my room other than like my vape, and yeah, that was pretty much it. But the staff were wonderful. They came to check on me all the time. They were helpful, and I'm not gonna lie, poor staff, I gave them hell. On my very first night, because of COVID, I had to isolate in my bedroom until I'd had a COVID test that come back. So I was only in there for 2 days, but I had to isolate. On my first night of admission, because I went in at night, this really nice lady asked me if I wanted something to eat, and she bought me toast. And she bought me toast on a ceramic plate. Bless her. She didn't realise. And I stashed a plate and they didn't realise, and I smashed it like straight away and all this stuff. So they took that out and they gave me a plastic one and I smashed that too. And then I gave them a really hard time because I was going through a really hard time. So the staff were lovely. They were supportive. They were in and out of my room so many times within a day to cut off ligatures and things like that. And I ended up getting changed into non-rippable clothing. But they weren't moody. They didn't make me feel guilty about it or anything at all. They were so lovely. And my key worker, that's it. The key worker that I had, She was amazing. They were just so kind. As I say, the only fault I can give for that is that I didn't agree with being discharged when I was actually discharged. Like just the day before, I'd had a really, really bad day and I had loads of ligatures and I was in full restraints, and it wasn't a good experience at all. So I kind of questioned being discharged so quickly. But when I was, they said that they was going to put me on a new course, something called SCM, which I can't remember what it stands for again. So I'm going to Google it because I actually want to tell you. No, it's not supply chain management. It's structured clinical mentoring, I think. Let me check. I'm pretty sure it is. Oh, close. Structured clinical management. Okay, that's what SCM is. This course is a year and a half, and I was actually given it quite quickly. I think I was on the waiting list for like 2 or 3 months, which is not that long at all when you think about waiting lists on NHS. I've been on them for 6 months plus before. Does the UK health system not have mental health infrastructure? Are you expected to pay out of pocket? No, in the UK, you can pay privately if you want to see like private therapy and all that stuff. But all of everything that I've mentioned, is been on the NHS, so it's been on the National Health Service. It's not something that I have directly paid for. Well, I mean, obviously you pay national insurance out of like wages and things like that, but I don't have to pay for each thing that I'm receiving, if that makes sense. So this structured clinical management, I was about to say the wrong word again, it's 18 months and you see somebody twice a week. I haven't seen anyone twice a week yet because you have a single therapist that is appointed to you, who I've been seeing for a few months now. And then after that, you then have a second session each week. So you have one-to-one with your therapist, and then you have a second one that's like a group thing. So I'm waiting to start the group bit. I was going to stop this therapy and I did pause it for a couple of weeks because I wasn't sure if it was going to help me, because as I said to my therapist, and what I've said earlier on in this video, is that I don't feel like it's tackling the right thing. For me with the BPD, it is daily, the reactions, the black and white view on things, the not believing things that people say, the intense emotions, the hot and cold, all of those things. I do deal with those, but I personally, like I said, feel like for me it's the depression that is a lot harder for me, and that's what causes most of my problems. So I voiced this and I said, I don't feel like I'm being given the treatment for the right thing. I feel like I'm being treated as just somebody who has BPD, and for me is this a depression that kicks my butt. So I paused it for a while, and then I had a call from a psychiatrist who isn't my psychiatrist, but he's going to be my psychiatrist whilst I'm on this course. So that was kind of a pro for me and kind of encouraged me to say yes to doing it, because I've not actually had that before, like somebody to regularly speak to. Every time you speak to somebody, it's a new person. You feel like you're having to explain your whole situation all over again to somebody new, which I'm sure most of you know is horrible. But he advised me to stay on it. So as I say, I'm only a few months into it now. He advised me to stay on it because if it doesn't work, then at the end of that, I can be offered something else and they can say, okay, she's tried this and hasn't done anything. So I'm optimistic about it. I'm willing to give it a really good shot, but I don't know how high my expectations are for this treatment. But I'm going to do it anyway. So I will definitely update on this because this isn't something that I've received before. So I'll definitely update on this treatment when I finish it and kind of how it was and if I think it's something that's worth doing. But yeah, that so far is my 10-year experience with mental health services. Somebody asked me in a comment the other day about episodes, having them in front of my children. So I'm going to do a video on, or maybe a live stream. I want to do something about kind of dealing with things with children around, because I know my last video mentioned dealing with mental illness as a parent, but there's more to it than that. It's kind of how much you show to your children and how much you try and keep back. For example, my children ask me about my scars and things, and like, oh, how did you get that, or why'd you have those marks? And it's quite difficult to deal with. So I'm going to talk about that. So yeah, I think that is everything. I'm trying to think if I've missed anything out. This video has gotten so long. I'm sorry. It's like 45 minutes. And I'm sure there's a million ums in there that I would love to cut out if this was actual video that I edited. But I fully just refuse to edit it again because it took me so long last time and I deleted it. So I just got in a shop about it and decided that I'd just live stream it instead. So I want to know if anyone else has had an experience different to mine or even the same as mine, because when I was in hospital the second time, I spoke to the other people there, and so many of us kind of, you know, had been you do that thing, don't you, with like, oh, you know, you okay, and how have they helped you, or somebody goes in to see the doctor and then they get pissed off when they come out because it's not what they've wanted. That definitely happened to me when I went in to see a doctor and it was just rubbish. So then you come out of your ward round and speak to somebody else and they're like, oh yeah, that was shit. So I definitely think that the services aren't great. I don't think that it's their fault. I think that there is just not enough funding. There's not enough money in the system. And I find that really upsetting because mental health is, I think, especially now, is growing more, or maybe just people talking about it more, so it feels like it's bigger. But for me, it feels like it's the biggest it has ever been at. And this is a service that literally takes so many lives, whether that's intentional because it's through suicide, or whether it's not necessarily intentional. Say if somebody's gone to drugs and somebody's now got you know, an addict because of these issues, and then that kills them off. You know, it's not always something that's done on purpose, but it's just such a huge killer, and the help just isn't there. You literally go through something, and this is why people feel like they're all alone, because you're going to the people that you think are going to help you, and you're going to the people that you're told are able to help you, like your doctors, and then you go higher than that and you go to a therapist, and you go higher than that and you go to a psychologist, you go higher than that, you go to a psychiatrist, and you've reached the very top. And when they're literally telling you that they can't help and there's nothing that they can do, it is a point where you think, well, what is the point? Like, how can you live like this? How can I live like this? How am I supposed to be able to live when there's this thing that every single day makes you feel like you don't want to live, and there's literally nothing that can be done about it? It feels like you have an incurable disease of, I don't know if that sounds extra, like I'm not trying to be extreme, but that is how it feels, because nothing helps. So I think it's a system that really needs changing. And this is something, again, that I want to talk about in a different video. I want to talk about mental health system in young people and how intervention should be provided and things like that. But I don't want to drone on too much because I'm nearly an hour now. So sorry. And if anyone's stuck with me through this live stream, I appreciate it. Thank you. But I don't know. I guess one of the biggest things when the services aren't there to offer you support is to kind of support each other as much as we can. In the US, biggest struggle trying to find practitioners to actually take my insurance. That I find absolutely crazy. Like, we don't realise how blessed we are here in the UK to have access to free services. Like, they might not always be great, but at least there is some kind of help there. But to be somebody in your position where you have to find insurance for it, or you have to pay for it, honestly, I couldn't imagine anything worse, because yeah, I agree with you, it's a chronic illness. and it's a hidden illness as well, so it's constantly underestimated and it's constantly let down because people can't see the disability. But to be in that position where it's literally life or death and somebody's telling you, well, I can't help you because you don't have the right insurance to give me, again, it's a killer. It literally is a killer because it leads you back to that feeling of despair, and it leads you back to that hopelessness of, well, what am I going to do then? I can't get any help. Like, there is literally nothing that can help me. And I think that's really upsetting, and it's a real letdown. So all I can say is try your hardest. And I know it sounds bad, but try your hardest to teach yourself. Like, DBT here is really difficult to get. It's like impossible to get on NHS. So I did a lot on YouTube. Like, literally, there's so many things on YouTube that's of like psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists talking about DBT skills and things to try at home. There really, really is a lot of resources on the internet. And I found that quite helpful because I thought, well, I'll just teach myself some of it. And it's just trial and error, as it is with anything like medication, it's trial and error. So definitely try that and just see if you can find anything that resonates with you, because if nothing works, you haven't lost anything. Like, at least you're trying. Also do your hardest to speak to other people as well. Excuse me. Don't try and keep things in. Like, try and communicate with other people about how you're feeling. And it's difficult because not everybody understands, or sometimes people don't have someone to talk to. Like, I literally have like 2 friends, 3 friends, 4 friends, and that's like it. I don't really have many friends at all. So I don't have a lot of people to speak to sometimes. But if it's not somebody that's directly, that then speak to somebody on a group. Like, I don't know, go on a Facebook group or something. I said that I wanted to start a group of my own, and I am definitely planning on doing that, and it's probably going to be on Facebook. I don't know what other channel I could use. Somebody mentioned Discord to me, but I've never used Discord and I don't really know how it works. So I'll check it out and see if I think that's a viable option. But I am planning on starting a group of some sort, just for people to be able to kind of say hello in, or if you're having a really awful time, then posting it, say you're having an awful time, and let somebody kind of just say that they care. That's it. It doesn't have to be giving therapy to each other, but just say that you care, and it helped that person to feel less alone. So if you want in on my group, keep an eye, because I will update on my channel when I'm doing it. We bought a workbook. Watching other people talk about it. Yeah, 100%. Isolation is a big thing. Feeling like, as I say, feeling like you don't have anyone to speak to, or like you are alone. Even though you're not, there's literally millions of people struggling with this same kind of thing across the world. It's so isolating because your mind, you feel alone, and everybody's affected I find everybody's affected in the same way, but everybody's also affected in a different way. So things that I deal with, I'm sure you deal with as well, like the extreme emotions and reactions and things like that. But then obviously it also has its own unique ways of affecting you. So that's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Okay, I think I've probably mentioned everything that I wanted to cover. So I guess I'll cut this off here. Tell me what you think of the whole live stream thing. I know I normally record and edit and upload, and I don't normally do live streams, but I actually think they're quite helpful for videos that are a bit longer. And it's nice to be able to communicate with somebody, like in the comments like this. It's nice to be able to actually have a conversation, because if there's something that I've missed or something that you want to know, then I can cover it like straight away. So yeah, if you did watch my live stream, thank you. If you do watch my live stream, thank you. And if you hate my live stream, thank you as well, because you came in at some point to realize that you hate it, so it's fine. Okay. I don't know what my next video is going to be just yet, but I have a million things. Sorry, I sit like a weirdo. I have a million things that I want to talk about. Easy to understand. Thank you. Have a good night yourself. Thank you if you have watched my just in general my channel or this live stream. And if you are interested in this whole kind of joining a group that I am going to create, because I definitely am going to do it. I might not do it just yet, but I am going to do it at some point in the future, not too far in the future. So if you are interested in being a part of that group and just don't even have to speak in it, you just want somewhere that you're going to see other people speak, or just feel like, you know, it's another outlet for how you're feeling and not feeling isolated. So if you are interested in that, do just keep an eye on my channel, because I'll definitely do a video or something to say that I've done it, for people to be able to join it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you next week in a video or a live stream, or maybe both. I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling. Have a good week. Have a good night, everyone, and bye.